was to come up with a piece of sculpture that in essence celebrated 100 years of the Federation of the Six Towns. I went around all the schools with a photographer and around all the museums with a photographer. I distributed online a questionnaire for the students at the school to think about and to respond to, and some of them responded really well. The whole information was collated by the digital journalist Claire. So I was sent away to come up with a whole lot of different ideas that they could have a public exhibition about, try and canvass public opinion and see what they preferred. And even then, the finished design only gave us really the basic concept, which was to do this idea of making a sculpture that lights itself. Then a panel met and they took into consideration everything that everyone was saying, and they decided to go in this direction based on what they wanted to do as well as what the public wanted to do. When I use the term public art, the word public is strictly in the possessive case, which means that it's theirs, it's the public's. So the public part of it is more important than my part. I did drawings and they weren't quite sure about them. So in the end, I thought it would be easier if I actually made a maquette. I just thought it would help to illustrate what we're talking about. It was really just a three-dimensional sketch. It's not a particularly good model, but it does help show what you can do with it. It's important to actually go and watch people trying to do what you expect them to do. I had a friend who worked with the Scottish Dance Theatre, so I contacted her and she arranged that we could go and visit and get 2 dancers allocated who would adopt the pose of the figures in the sculpture. It helps me to get the composition right and the relationship right as well. I've got these armatures that I made ages ago, and they're telescopic and they're articulate. So it means that they can do anything that a human arm can do. They've got nuts and bolts, but they've also got tubes and sleeves so that the arms can get longer or shorter. I've stretched them out fully and bolted them in position of the 2 dancers. Also, we've got wire here, which is recycled. That's made from old fencing wire. And the reason I use old fencing wire is that it's not pre-tensioned and it's very flexible. I'll be covering him next with fencing wire like this, mesh. It's a great advantage in that you can get action into the figures before you start putting on the clay. I've been working on the clays for about 3 days. I slapped it on really thick on this guy, but you can see it's a wee bit too wet. I'm just hoping he'll dry out a bit. I think I did both in one day, and then I've been working on her for about 2 days. Sort of finding her shape, looking for her as if she's hidden somewhere. There's going to be nuts and bolts showing, which you need to have access to if you need to change the shape. And eventually we'll get the Saxon bowl in here, so I've got to be able to open and close her arms. Instead of having a blob like that and slapping it on, you can make it into little sausages and they gradually get smaller as you work on it. That gets the clay under control. You've got to keep an eye on what you're doing here to make sure it's in the same scale as her body. You can get more and more into the detail of the clay work as you go, and you start doing eyes and lips and noses and ears and things, and then you can try and make it grow into someone that you like. It'd be quite nice to model her head in the upright position and then stick it on here, but you can damage it in the process, so I've got to try and model it sideways. The sausages are getting smaller. Traditionalists would think I'm going too far ahead doing the face at this time, but I often do this. Because if I get it right, then I can alter the body more easily. She's actually looking straight ahead, but she should probably be looking down. So she'll have to be looking right out the corner of her eye about there. So I'll have to change the eyelid a wee bit, so close it a wee bit there. This won't be final, it'll probably evolve quite a bit more. You see how that eye's way up there. If you take a straight line there, this one's need to come up about that much. I think I'll just take it out. The eyebrow should be right there. So that makes her jaw a wee bit squint. I'll just do. That's a bit better. And those, some of you'll take for granted, but it affects the personality. It makes a difference when you just get a little ball of clay. Just put it there. Another one there. That gives you a little bit of structure and you can sort of shape it. So you can get a snarl or something fuller. So I'll just shape it down a bit. Every time I pick up a piece of clay, I'm feeling it, see what the consistency is like, see if it's the right consistency for what I'm going to do. So like for covering an area, that's nice and soggy. That'd be quite good. But if it's for doing details like lining a lip or taking a little bit and roll it thin. I just didn't like the first head that I did with the woman, partly because I was working at 8 sails to the wind, just leaning over all the time, trying to model her at that angle. So I've taken it off, so it's over here. So we take the head off, put it on a stake, and completely remodel it. That's much easier to work on. Gosh, it looks terrible. When she was up there, I was missing out things like the corner of the mouth here, because it's slightly up. Clay modelling is a process of addition, whereas carving is a process of subtraction. And once you subtract, you can never put it back on again. But with clay modelling, you're adding things on and adding things on, but then you can carve it back, and then you can add more on. If it was any other medium, like stone or wood, you carve away at it, and if you don't like it, it's too bad. I also have been doing a lot of work with light engineers to make sculpture that the colour changes over a period of time very slowly, and that's really quite a nice effect, and it just adds another dimension. And I was thinking that you could have a sculpture that lights itself. I've been trying to establish the correct direction so this comes down and shines on her face. Used to be about there, eh? Should get his too, if his head was there. Take it down. Yeah, the heads are coming together. He's moved round, but it's actually quite useful because I want this to be a complete unit, nice and strong structurally. I want to try and resolve the feet. Just looking at the size of him compared to his feet, it's probably a bit bigger than that. Achilles tendon. Try to avoid giving him knees and her because the legs are so long. It's just like long shapes rather than actual anatomy. I'm going to go back now and do her hair because I need to get the whole thing okayed before the weekend. I'm just going to give him a sort of, just turn it up a wee bit at the front. I'll take some photographs and I'll phone Paul. That's a compliment, it's recognised as people. Hello Paul, it's David. I've just emailed you some pictures.
I love the images, thank you.
Okay.
I love the drama between the two figures.
There's parts of armature sticking through that you just have to ignore because they won't get cast.
Yes, of course.
And I think the heads are going to touch quite easily. I think we'll be able to, when we cast them. I mean, the founder are going to be annoyed that they're so close as it is, but they'll soon find their way around them. If you're happy with this, I'll finish them over the weekend.
Okay.
And get casting on Monday.
Yeah, let me know how you go on with the foundry collecting and everything.
Yeah, okay. Right, we'll keep you posted on all that.
Cheers, David.
Okay, bye Paul.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. The founder's in Edinburgh, and they come here for 3 or 4 days to take moulds. One thing I have to bear in mind, they've got to get power through her arm and right down through there. They're a bit near each other, it's a bit of a nuisance, isn't it?
That hair would come off after. That would make life it's going to be a nightmare otherwise.
I couldn't model her fingers properly upside down. It's going to spare trying again, so I'll do them in the wax.
Do that in the wax.
The other thing is the dish could come off. In fact, I could forget about his fingers on the top.
Yeah.
And do them in wax.
Do you think we get that head off then, or?
I'll investigate it again.
Get it off. It's a quick, quiet kill.
foundry now, I've got the casting down to perfection, very accurate, so that what you see in clay is what you're going to get in bronze.
What's in your mix?
It's a silicon rubber and the hardener that makes it set. That's captured all the detail, so that we know then we've got all the detail that David's modelled in, all the textures and surface. So this will start to gel up in about 20 minutes, hence the need to work pretty fast. And then after about 2 or 3 hours, it will actually set completely. It'd be like these latex gloves, it would be a thin skin of rubber right over the whole sculpture. Then we'll come back tomorrow and use the same mix of rubber, but we'll put in another element, another additive, which makes the rubber to like a paste, so you can actually butter it on in a sort of thick, swirly pattern to build up a thickness of rubber. After that sets, the next day we come back and put a third layer on using the same mix as the second layer and smooth it all off using a silicone oil. We then add plaster of Paris over the top in the form of jackets over the rubber, made in sections that we're going to do the bronze casting in, and that then retains the shape of the sculpture. So you end up with a negative from David's artwork in the rubber and the plaster, so we can then reproduce the artwork in wax.
The moulds are taken away to Edinburgh and the clay goes back in the bin. They clean out the moulds and then they paint the inside of the moulds with a layer of wax.
Put oil in here to stop the wax from sticking to the mould. So once you put one layer on, you need to go over it again and again until you get it nice and dark green. And then we clip the moulds together, and then once the moulds are clipped together, we pour out a bucket of wax from the wax tank and just let it cool down a bit and then pour it back out, so you've got a certain thickness of wax.
Then they take off the outer plaster jackets and then they peel off the silicone moulds and you're left with an exact wax replica of each part of the body, because they do it in bits. It's a bit like a chocolate Easter egg made of wax. What's happened there is when the moulds come off, it's pulled her eyelid up a wee bit, so I'm just going to tidy that up a bit. I'm going to give her a wee manicure, because I couldn't model her hands when she was upside down. You then fill that with a sort of fireproof core, cement, so it's solid. And then they bang in horseshoe nails, and then they cover that with a fireproof casting material. And then they put it into a kiln and burn out the wax. Now the reason the horseshoe nails are there is that the horseshoe nails are set in the inner core and they're also set in the outer core, so the inner core can't move around. And then they pour in molten bronze into that hole. They then send them away to get bead blasted to get all the fireproof material off them, and it's just like the inner core. Then they come back from the bead blast to get these nice shiny bits of bronze, they weld them all back together in position. There's a competition being put out by the Radio Stoke to try and get poets from the area to submit a poem that'll be written on the dish that the figure's holding. It's a good way of helping people to linger with the sculpture, get to know it a wee bit better and relate to it. It'll get digitally bead blasted onto it. They'll be able to read the poem during the day. At night it's going to be a reflective dish, so it will have a purpose during the day as well as at night. There's a company in Tayport called Foodneck. They've got this bead blasting unit and they can make it so it's this beautiful sheen. The pillar that Callum's making will be taken there as well.
We did several test pieces yesterday. We just built up from smaller pieces up to full 2 metre length pieces with the same material. We need to get 120 degrees, which is the measurement of the angle for a hexagon. Now that it's been bent into 2 pieces, we'll pull this together and tack it with a TIG welding machine. Then once it's all sitting right at the appropriate angles, the seam will be completely welded and then dressed out with a grinder, and that will match the radiuses on the outsides here. What we need to do now is get these edges clean. So what I'm going to do is take a grinder with a flat disc on it and just clean it back to the clean metal. That'll allow the TIG welding process to go ahead fairly smoothly, and we're not left with any porosity holes in the welds. Stainless steel distorts, it really distorts with a lot of heat, So what we have to do is minimise the impact of the heat by alternating where we weld. We don't just start at the bottom and then weld completely to the top. What we have to do is do maybe 20 millimetres here and then move to here and then here and alternate. Ideally, what we're looking for after we're finished, you won't tell what corners have been bent and what corners have been welded.
The idea's got that on a hexagonal pillar, the names of the 6 towns celebrating their 100th birthday of their federation. And inside the sculpture they're going to put a time capsule with objects chosen by school children to represent the 2010